was a bombshell announcement last night. The whole country, not to mention the world, was reeling from this one. Buckingham Palace revealed that Andrew would not only lose his title Prince, but move out of the £30 million Royal Lodge in Windsor. But while he's set for a property on the Sandringham estate, which is privately owned by the King, his brother, it's believed that his ex-wife Fergie, who also lived at Royal Lodge since 2008, will have to fend for herself and somehow make her own living arrangements. She's already been forced to give up her title Duchess of York over her own links to Jeffrey Epstein. Remember that she called the paedophile billionaire a supreme friend in an email that she sent him after she had claimed in public to have stopped all contact with him. So that turned out not to be true, didn't it? But do you feel as if she's lost too much already? Let's start with Lizzy. She's here really because she's a friend of Sarah Ferguson.
Yeah, I am a friend of Sarah's and I can't help but feel a bit sorry for her today. I mean, anyone that loses their home, as you said, she's lived there, brought the girls up there, but it was right for them both to leave Royal Lodge. I said that on Monday, and I also said exclusively they would be going to, you know, Andrew would be offered Norfolk rather than staying in the Windsor estate. But, you know, I'm afraid Sarah's biggest mistake was her loyalty to Andrew, because that mud has stuck on her, though she's not being, you know, the finger's not at her for these allegations. And with, you know, there's a possible police investigation, don't forget. That's nothing to do with Sarah. But sadly, because of her lack of judgment and her loyalty, lying loyalty to Andrew, it's really cost her.
But this is what I don't understand. If she's undyingly loyal to Andrew, and she herself described them as the happiest divorced couple in the world, didn't she? So she was right beside him. She said he's a wonderful man, he's a magnificent person, and whatever the paper said, she was there. She was there backing him up. How can that come to an end? I mean, isn't that the kind of loyalty that you feel for somebody for life?
I think in some respects, she's realised how silly she's been herself. She feels, most of all, for the victims of Epstein. She's looking at this, you know, maybe not with rose-coloured glasses anymore. She's seeing him for what he is, the damage he's done to the royal family. You know, even the thought her daughters could have their titles removed. I think it's really made her reflect and look at the whole situation differently. And I think she's realised, you know, now enough's enough. And she's got to start life again. She's got to reinvent herself somehow. And, you know, she can't be linked with Andrew,
I mean, we'll just clarify, police are looking into claims that Prince Andrew used his police protection officer to smear Virginia Giuffre. That's what they're looking into. That's nothing to do with Sarah. On the other hand, she made a very public apology. She said that she would have nothing whatsoever to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Then, of course, we see the email in which she calls him her most precious and foremost friend. And what's more, we then find out that she took Beatrice and Eugenie to meet Jeffrey Epstein when he came out of prison. They were the first people, so eager was she.
It was.
And then we've seen all the pictures of, you know, Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell frolicking at various big parties of Andrew and Fergie's. So nobody's suggesting that she was implicated in any kind of sex trafficking or anything like that. But she doesn't emerge unsmeared from this, does she?
Well, no, she doesn't. And as I said, she's made huge mistakes. I mean, I don't think any of us have seen such a fall from grace as, you know, Andrew,
no, it was
formerly known as Prince.
Dramatic yesterday. I mean,
Fergie,
it was amazing.
I mean, it's the most dramatic fall I've ever seen in my lifetime, and I don't think this ever happened since 1917.
When you say, Lizzy, that she'll have to reinvent herself, what about the possibility that actually she doesn't have to reinvent herself at all? What she has to do is lead a very quiet life now. She doesn't need to be a public person anymore. She could just go and live wherever she wants to live. It's up to her. She's going to have to pay for it herself or find the means, but she can just be a grandma and be a friend and maybe work quietly for a charity, but she doesn't have to be a personality and be on the television and give interviews. She could just decide, I've done that, and it really didn't work out that well.
Well, you know, for whatever anyone thinks, people actually like Fergie. When she worked doing the shows, like at This Morning and other shows, everyone there said how lovely and gracious she was and a nice person. And I think with Fergie, we've seen time and time again, she has reinvented herself. And I do believe out of something bad bad, something good can happen. I don't think it's fair we just write her off. And she's a recognisable face. You know, her priorities are her children and her grandchildren. And I think she needs time to reflect and then maybe come and do an interview and have her truth.
And I
Give
welcome
some
her on this.
clarity.
Welcome her on this sofa any date from January the 5th with pleasure. She's definitely invited.
Yes, I will tell her.
I'll call her whatever she likes, and I'd love to have her on the show. But let me ask you this: do you think that she will continue to see Prince Andrew, or Andrew? I must remember to call him Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Will she continue to see him quietly without drawing attention to it, or do you think she will really like to draw a line and not see him anymore?
I honestly think, and what I've heard, and I spoke to a close friend today, that she's going to try and draw a line. She knows, he is the father of her children, and they're both grandparents. They've got, beautiful grandchildren. And obviously she's going to see him, but I think she's going to draw a line. She now has to put Sarah first in some respects on rebuilding her future. And I think, there's been a lot of people linked with Epstein. Look at the Clintons, Peter Mandelson, even Tony Blair welcomed him
Trump, of course.
to number 10. And Sarah's got to have a little time to reflect. She does feel terribly sorry, and she said from the start her thoughts are with the victims. But I think she needs to do an interview and tell her side of the truth and let people then decide and then go from there what our future will be.
All right, let's bring Penny into this. What do you think about
Well,
Fergie in all of this?
Well, it's just very difficult, isn't it? Because the thing is that we now know that the whole thing about keeping in contact with Epstein was partly because of the money that she was lent by him. And we have always known, haven't we? Well, certainly in the last decade or so, that she has lived beyond her means. And that is a problem when so many people struggle, and then you see this person who's just, offered cash to meet Andrew, as we now must call him, and that sort of thing. So, she is the architect of her own, not of her own downfall. I mean, partly the architect of her own downfall.
So what do you think should happen to her now?
Well, I agree with Lizzy that she should be very quiet and retreat, and maybe, who knows, maybe write a diary and actually, so that when she does finally come on this sofa, she actually reads from her diary about what her feelings and her thoughts were, and perhaps how she can make amends as well for what's gone on.
Marvyn, what do you think? What do you see when you look into this picture?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate for her. I wouldn't sit there and say I have deep sadness about her outcomes. I do agree with you that it is your own creation. And as it's been documented, 20 years after you're no longer with your husband, you continue to stay within his swell, I think has cost her greatly. And on one hand, yes, it can be considered sad, but I think it's also your responsibility, and having many chances to rebuild your life. And actually, as you said, as a grandmother, as a mother, there's so many things you can do in the world to really help people that would have kept her really occupied, but also being helpful. I think the choices that she's made have been bad. And so in essence, you've created this, and the consequences are with you, really.
Cosmo?
I think it's hard for any of us to understand the terrible sense of shame she must have, both as a former royal and the mother of 2 daughters. But I think this whole thing is a bit of a smokescreen. We want justice. We want to see somebody punished. We want his titles taken off. We want her kicked out of her home. That's not going to do what we want. What we want is to see the man on trial. That's the important thing. And all these other things, they're just sort of sideshows.
So you don't think that the king will have achieved his objective in somehow distancing the royal family, showing his lack of sympathy for his brother, and in the statement that they made yesterday, saying absolutely our thoughts are with the victims.
It won't be enough for the victims. It won't be enough for the public. He should stand trial.
Wow.
And then you can have closure. Then you can bring this thing to an end.
Well, at the moment, he's not under arrest for anything. You can't just go and demand a trial for something you haven't been arrested for.
And I have to say, I think King Charles has done the right thing. He got heckled the other day so badly, and he had no choice. This is trying to, let the royal family survive this, and it relies on public opinion.
Yes, exactly. They have to have our approval to continue at all. Let's go to Jennifer in Northamptonshire. Jennifer, this story, such an unsavoury one, playing out so publicly and for such a long time. What do you feel about what you're seeing today, this morning?
Something.
Yes, Jennifer.
What? Corruption. Can you hear me?
Oh.
Hard to hear you. I don't know. I can't hear what you're saying. I think we'll move on to our next caller, which is Valerie in Surrey. Valerie, what do you feel about Fergie's role in all of this?
I feel very sorry for her in lots of respects. She was always called Fat Fergie in the very beginning. So the press have always been on to her. She has rebuilt her life. She has made dreadful mistakes, but don't we all in this life?
Well, not necessarily. We don't all make mistakes of that magnitude. We don't necessarily take our daughters to greet a convicted paedophile as he comes out of prison. We don't necessarily do that. We don't necessarily accrue debts of millions and millions and millions of pounds and then keep on doing so. And we don't necessarily put ourselves in hock to people of really dubious reputation because we desperately need them to lend us money. So we all make mistakes. Yes, we do. But we don't all have her privileges to start with, do we really?
I think she has made dreadful mistakes. I'm not arguing on that score.
Yeah.
But she is still the mother of two princesses.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think they feel?
Terrible. They must feel absolutely terrible.
There is empty properties on the Windsor estate. Live her life out quietly in one of them.
But
on her own, and him living another one.
And that's not going to happen at all. He's going off to Sandringham, which is in Norfolk, and she is going to go and be her own person somewhere else. So the king is not going to provide her with anywhere to live. But remember, when they got divorced all those years ago, Valerie, she got a sizable divorce settlement then. You don't get another one later, 20 years on, when your ex-husband moves out of a magnificent mansion. You're not entitled to another settlement, are you? Why should he give her a place to live in there?
Don't you think she needs to live near her daughters?
Well, I think her daughters are, both of them actually, are very well heeled and financially successful and comfortable, and I think everybody can afford to take Ubers to anywhere that they want to go to if they want to see each other.
Sandringham is a very, being in North Norfolk and rather than being next door to a daughter when you've got grandchildren, as you know. And I think Valerie says a good point there, though she has made huge, massive, humongous mistakes. They've been played out on the front pages of every paper, and not everyone has that. If we make a mistake, it hopefully won't be. But Sarah has had unbelievable, nasty things written about her. The Duchess of Pork, all of that, constantly compared to, the late Diana. And I think, she's had a rough ride with it. I'm not saying get the violins out or anything, but it has been tough for her.
All right, let's go to Anne, who's on the line in London. What do you think of this, Anne? When you look at this picture, what do you see? Because we all seem to see whatever we're projecting into it, really, don't we, as usual with the royal family. So what do you see when you look into this?
Well, number one, I think that Fergie's been living quite happily with Andrew for 20 years rent-free. I don't see why she can't go with him to his new house, wherever it is. As you say, she's already had her settlement. Yeah. She doesn't need a second one. And may I say, I do like Lizzy, but Lizzy has done nothing but apologise for Fergie on every programme she's been on, and I think it should be Fergie herself who should be apologising and not Lizzy.
Well, let me just say something, because Lizzie's a good friend of mine, so I think, this is about your friends.
It's about...
And Lizzy is speaking up for her friend. Fergie's her friend, and that's what friendship is. I totally get that, and I hope if, God forbid, it were me, she'd speak up for me, and I know if anything awful happened to Penny or Lizzy, Cosmo or Marvyn, I'd jolly well speak up for them. And also, Fergie can't just come on TV right now and start speaking up for herself, and so Lizzie's doing her very best, isn't she, to show some support for somebody who is being vilified by absolutely everyone.
It is true.
And it's quite difficult, because obviously, as you can hear from what Lizzie's saying, she doesn't want to say, well, Fergie's done nothing wrong, she's absolutely blameless in all of this. It's quite hard for Lizzy, isn't it?
She's made the most hugest, silly, stupid mistakes, and no one knows that more than Sarah Ferguson today.
Yeah. And Anne, when you said, can't she just go and live with Andrew, I don't think she wants to, does she?
No, she doesn't want to live with Andrew, and as I said, now she wants to draw the line and hopefully be able to move on somehow from this, but she needs to reflect, and she's made, as I said, very, very silly, stupid mistakes.
Yes, it's a very difficult one, isn't it, Anne? But don't blame Lizzy, it's not her fault, let's put it that way. Let's go to Karen in London. Karen, how do you feel about it?
It's not unfair at all. I think it's in general, the royal family are just arrogant and think that they're entitled, and all this is a consequence of that. And they're only belatedly now doing this because they're panicking, because they know how things are bad for the monarchy. And I must admit, I'm a Republican, and she's crying because she's been caught out because there was an email where she's admitted to Epstein that she only pretended to blame him and cut off contact because she was worried about her book sales. How awful is that? That never mind the poor victims of Epstein. How could she do that?
But when you say, Karen, they're all like that, you said the royal family, they're all arrogant, they're all entitled. You see the king working away while he's having his chemotherapy treatment. You see Princess Anne at 70 plus doing more engagements per day than anybody aged 20. I mean, and the Queen herself, the late Queen, I mean, how diligent she was, how conscientious, her absolute belief in duty above all other things. I don't agree that they're all entitled or arrogant. Is that fair?
Oh, yes, Charles and Harry in particular have been lecturing years and years and years on the environment, but they've travelled by private planes all their life, which has the worst carbon footprint going. But they just don't get it.
But when Prince Charles was Prince Charles and people thought that he was kooky and crazy and talking to plants and organic farming and all that kind of thing, he's turned out to be absolutely right about most everything.
He was ahead of his times.
Yeah,
really,
Cosmo?
Really
he was ahead of his times. He was where we laughed at him. Now we're not laughing now. We're listening.
Exactly. Karen, thank you so much. Let's go to Rebecca in Essex. What do you feel, Rebecca?
Oh, hello, Vanessa.
Hi.
Firstly, Vanessa, thank you for saying that Sarah, you're going to invite Sarah back next year.
I'd love her to come on. Of course I would.
Yeah, because I do love what Lizzy said, and I love watching Lizzy sticking up for her because there's hardly anybody else sticking up for her.
That's right. I think Lizzy's the only person in the whole world sticking up for her, quite frankly.
Thank you, Lizzy. If anything, I'll be watching you all the time because I just love the way you stick up for Sarah. I've been in touch with Sarah for the last 2 or 3 years, and I can only describe her as a very generous and lovely person. She's just kind, and I don't think she could care less about her titles. She's not worried about that. But I do think we were all going to miss her on the television because it's like Lizzy said, she was invited to This Morning and Lorraine, and they was all loving her. In fact, when she was on Loose Women, they were fawning over her. And now, the first time they got a chance, after all this came out 3 or 4 days ago, they was all against Fergie and slagging her off. And it's just not right. You know, she's a very good person. And I just feel sorry that she's lost her charities because obviously she was doing good. And I feel now I don't want to support the cancer charity anymore because they've kicked her out.
Oh, I don't think that. Don't make that big leap into not supporting a cancer charity, Rebecca. That would be, I think, a step too far. But it's interesting to see that you feel that she's warm-hearted and a good person, and you haven't looked at the email that she sent to Jeffrey Epstein and thought, well, gosh, actually, she lied in public, very hypocritical, and decided to change your view of her, because I mean that's what's obviously happened on Loose Women, for example. They were happy to think of her as big-hearted, adorable, misunderstood, that sort of thing. You know, put her foot in it, but basically a good person. Then this new evidence comes to light, and people start to think, "Oh gosh, well actually, we got it wrong." You see.
But as Rebecca said, she could see the inner beauty, as it were, coming out of Sarah because she is very likeable. She did great work for charities. She herself had cancer, and she's lost all those charities now. She's lost her titles. You know, she's still a human being, and as you said, Rebecca, she's a good mother and a grandmother now. So, you know, I think we've got to just stop this all huge pile onto her. She's made huge errors, huge mistakes, and as I said, no one knows that more than Sarah Ferguson today.
Let's go to Katie in Kent. How do you feel about this, Katie?
Oh, hello, Vanessa.
Hello.
Well, a lot of things that I was going to say have been said. I don't really think she's being treated unfairly. Has she been living rent-free for the last 20 years as well?
Yes.
Because I'm 77... and I get up at 6 o'clock to do boot sales to get some extra money. So I think both of them should do some community work somewhere to redeem themselves.
I agree.
And I want to talk about this with Penny a second, because Penny, there's charity work and charity work. And there's charity work where you get to go in your very best dress and sail up a red carpet and everyone curtsies and you've given the great sort of stardust of your appearance at the thing. Yeah. And there's charity work where you're unpacking the donations in the back room of Oxfam. It's not the same thing, is it?
No, and that's exactly what we were saying earlier, isn't it? Do charity work quietly, where you don't get thanked for it. And actually, we absolutely know that you feel better when you do something for somebody else without blowing your own trumpet. So do that.
Yes.
And you're talking about her mental health, I think, Lizzy there, and saying, that's the way to actually heal, is to go and do something for somebody else where you're not fated and swanning up a red carpet.
And of course, the late Duchess of Kent, that's exactly what she
did.
Yeah. She used to teach music in a comprehensive school just as Mrs. Kent. Nobody knew who she was. She got no fanfare, no nothing. And she did. And also John Profumo did that.
Yes, that's how he rehabilitated himself and won the affection back. You just quietly get on, and as Penny say, stay in the back room, stay out of the spotlight, and just do it. And eventually, you'll win people over slowly.
And don't succumb to that
PR.
thing.
That's the terrible thing.
That's what I was just about to say.
Action, and it's always disastrous.
But Lizzy, do you think after all these years in the spotlight, I mean, I remember her wedding. I mean, millions of people all over the world watched it. None of us can imagine what it's like to be that famous and that celebrated, and people kowtowing to you in that way for decades and decades. Do you think she'd be able to survive without the spotlight in some way?
I don't know, because she's had it for so long, and I sadly do get addicted to it, as we most of us know who have been famous. And I don't know if she's going to be able to, but I think she's going to do a lot of reflection. She wants to do something good. She wants to give back in some way possible. And I always say, out of something bad, something good can always happen. And if anyone can reinvent themselves, it's Sarah Ferguson.
All right, let's bring in Sharon in Staffordshire. How do you feel about it, Sharon? I think you're not as forgiving as Lizzy is.
No, I'm not. No. Good afternoon, Vanessa. You look absolutely gorgeous in that dress, Vanessa.
Well, I saved this for the last show of 2025. This is the best dress of all. The best dress. Do you know, this is dress 157, Sharon. I haven't repeated a single one. Did you notice that? Not one. 157 dresses.
Wardrobe.
I've got several wardrobes. What can I tell you? Yes. So I'm glad you like it, because I hope this was the best one. Thank you for acknowledging.
I love it.
You're the only person who's noticed in the world, Sharon. No one else said a word. Only you.
We all said
it. Okay, they did.
She walked into the room when you said it.
They did.
Can I say?
Anyway, what do you think of Fergie, Sharon?
Can I say? Lizzy has got the audacity to come on TV defending Fergie. Fergie has always been an embarrassment to the royal family from day one, and she should be exiled. Not just Andrew. She should. And Penny.
Yeah.
Fergie will not do anything for free. She will not. She wants money for everything. She's just in it for what she can get. And I've got no respect for her, and she just needs to go. She's an embarrassment to our country and to the royal family.
I was suggesting that she do something for free to make herself feel better.
Lizzy, find a friend like that. I tell you, I would get rid of her as quick as possible. I really would.
I know, but don't you think that shows something exceptional about Lizzy, though, Sharon? That she doesn't want to ditch her friend. Talking about kicking a woman when she's down, she doesn't want to do that.
Think about it. Lizzy will go down with her.
I won't go down.
No, never. We won't let that happen.
And I'm also agreeing that some of the things she's done are wrong.
Friends like that, Lizzy.
Sharon, let me ask you a quick question.
Let Cosmo talk for a minute.
Let me ask you a quick question. Don't you believe that people can change? That they can do terrible things and actually become better people?
No, she won't change. She will never change.
You seem to know her extremely well.
Well, I've followed her over the years, and she's always been an embarrassment to the royal family from day one.
She's had her embarrassing moments, but so have a lot of the other members of the royal family, including the king.
And Sharon, she'll be the first to say that she's a real embarrassment, let me tell you. And she puts her hands up and admits it. She really does. But, I won't kick someone when they're down.
But I think you might have forgotten, Sharon, that when she first got together with Prince Andrew, as he then was, everybody loved her. They thought that she was an absolute breath of fresh air. She was natural.
The Queen loved
funny.
her.
The Queen loved her. She was great company. And she didn't she go to Canada and she had a maple leaf stuck in her hair and she was just kind of up for it.
Georgia did the Royal It's knockout and she was the one that was, she didn't make herself...
Exactly. So you say she was always an embarrassment, but at the beginning she was considered to be an absolute joy at the beginning. It just all went wrong a bit soon.
It has gone wrong, and as I said, she knows more than anyone today the mistakes she's made, and I think she's going to really reflect, but I think we're going to see her again.
I'll tell you what I'd do if I were her.
Yeah.
I'd go and stay with her sister in Australia for a bit. Because her sister lives in the outback, doesn't she?
Great
And
idea.
also, I think just to go and sit and be with your sister who loves you.
That's a good idea.
Just be far away and just that kind of
get
a
away.
thing.
And also America love her. I think I've been told there could be a chance she'll go to America and to the States. They loved her in the States, and I think there's a way she can maybe reinvent and redeem herself somehow.